round two, let's say good morning to Adam Vaughan, former Liberal MP, now principal at Navigator. Toronto City Councillor Brad Bradford is here, and Rowena Santos, Brampton City Councillor. And actually, Brad, let's bat cleanup on one file, and that would be, I forget what day of the week it was, but you published a column criticizing the snow clearing operation, and next day, Olivia Chow was doing a mea culpa on a microphone in front of a sidewalk that hadn't been properly cleared. I imagine that's fairly satisfying.
Well, it's satisfying that she's starting to recognize the problem and hopefully take some more action as the snow comes down on the city right now. So certainly it wasn't just me. We had the piece in the Star on Monday, but if you talk to anyone at the TTC or trying to navigate our sidewalks, go into a daycare, talk to seniors, they will let you know. So it was pretty shocking when Olivia came out and said, the staff weren't honest with her that the sidewalks hadn't been plowed. I was kind of thinking, have you been in Arizona the past couple of weeks? Because if you walked outside, you would see that the sidewalks hadn't been cleared. But either way, city needs to do a better job, and hopefully we can get that sorted out as snow's coming down right now.
So everybody on the panel this morning has held elected office or currently holds elected office. So I guess Election Day feels a little different to you folks, or does it? Adam Vaughan, I get very excited about Election Day. I love voting. I love voting on the actual day. I love covering the outcome.
Yeah, no, it's if I have any advice today, it's vote. Politicians pay attention to the parts of their riding or their ward. They pay attention to parts of the district they run in that vote. If you want to know why housing policy skews so heavily towards seniors and homeowners as opposed to tenants and younger people, it's because tenants don't vote. If you vote, it doesn't matter which party, but if there's a high turnout in your poll, cuts to that poll, whether it's a school cut or a transit cut, they're less likely because politicians are sensitive to where people vote. Vote heavily, vote hard, and where you live will get better as a result.
Rowena, you have held provincial office, so is this particular election day more significant to you?
Well, I've actually worked in provincial office as a staffer and as a campaign organizer, but now also as an elected official. E-Day is what we call it as a campaign organizer, is one of the most exciting days. We are checking to make sure the polls are open, making sure that the scrutineers are signed in, calling all the volunteers to pull the vote. And what's interesting about this is I'm looking out my window, looking at all the snow falling down on E-Day. And while everyone believes and the polls say that Premier Doug Ford is going to be winning again, it'll be interesting because voters in conditions like this will be motivated based on whether or not they want change or not. And so this will be an interesting ground game today to see who can actually pull the vote. Days like today can sometimes have a bit of an impact on what the result is.
Okay. And Brad Bradford, you excited about the election, or am I being a little too boyish about this?
No, I'm actually pretty much walking over to my voting booth after this when it opens at 9 a.m. So getting that done early today. I am keen. Democracy is super important, and I think when we look around the world and reflect on that, it is a privilege to have the opportunity to vote. It's your right. It's something we should exercise. And Joe was kind of teeing us up when we were assembling the panel this morning about having all of us run for office, been elected. It's a special day for candidates as well, regardless of the party, all of that work, the people who have supported you along the way. You're doing it for your community. You're doing it for them. And I remember, even as you're walking down the street, you might start Main Streeting at a Subway, reminding people to go out and vote. People make eye contact. They give you a smile. They tell you, I voted for you today. It's a very special experience as the electorate turns on and tunes in. And, I typically go have a beer or something, pint in the afternoon, and just sort of settle the nerves. There's not a whole lot for the candidates to do today, but there's no experience like it. And seeing the team come together to execute on Election Day is pretty special for campaigns as well.
Minutes ago, Jagmeet Singh was here to make the case for why Donald Trump should be uninvited from the G7, which is happening in Canada, June 15th to the 17th. I asked him if we were acting against our own interests, if we, disallowed the ability to summit with somebody who happens to be the president of the United States.
Well, I just don't think you can summit together in a meaningful way with someone who wants to take over your country. Like, how do you do that? Like, as I'm saying this, I feel more and more conviction. Like, it doesn't make sense. It fundamentally doesn't make sense. And for folks who say, well, this is a provocative move, we did nothing, no provocation, and he threatened tariffs that directly already caused impacts to workers.
Rowena, I'll start with you on this one. I mean, it's never going to happen, but even the campaign that Jagmeet Singh is running right now is going to antagonize Donald Trump, which I don't think is a very good idea.
I agree with you, John. I don't think it's a good idea either, as much as I really, really disagree and have been very passionate about the things that Donald Trump has been doing. He still is part of the United States is a major player on the G7, and that will make us look not very good. And also, if Donald Trump shows up, chances are he's going to say and do, or, say something really weird again, which quite frankly is just going to prove to the world yet again what the issue is with this particular president. So I agree with you. I don't think it's helpful. I think that the United States definitely and rightfully so deserves a seat at that table in that invitation.
Brad Bradford, I think he's mostly playing politics and, at the moment appealing to his base who hate Trump.
Yeah, this is political grandstanding, and it's the NDP trying to insert themselves and be relevant. And you understand in politics you have to try and do that. But it's interesting to listen to his commentary as he indicates he has more and more conviction as he thinks about it. I would suggest that if you were thinking about it, you would realize that it's not a very smart idea. The idea of not engaging in diplomacy and somehow that would help the situation seems a little bit nuts to me. I think that the U.S. took a pass on the G20 anyway, so we don't even know if these guys are going to show up. But now is the time to reach out and reinforce our position. I think that's important. And you do that by having a conversation, not by telling people to go pound sand and, you're not invited. That's not a very grown-up position for somebody who has aspirations to lead this country, which I believe theoretically the NDP still does. And Jagmeet's just showing everybody again, he's not a serious guy.
Okay. Adam Vaughan, you've been part of the federal government, so you understand the stakes.
Well, look at, if Jagmeet Singh thinks you solve problems by not talking to people, maybe you should stop talking. But maybe the real solution here is if he comes, don't let him leave.
Okay. Listen, let's dig into a few other things, including Pride Toronto, apparently in some degree of economic peril. Adam, I'll start with you on this one. Not the first year, but apparently some key sponsors have been moving their money elsewhere without offering any commentary, I don't think.
Yeah, look, arts organizations across the city are experiencing a pullback from corporate sponsorship. And with Pierre Poilievre talking about cutting the Canada Council and cutting the CBC, it looks like government funding could also be withdrawn. This is a really serious time. We're facing a challenge to our country's integrity, our sovereignty. One of the places we understand each other, and one of the ways we get to understand each other, is by these big events where people meet each other and sort of see. I don't think same-sex marriage gets legalized if people don't show up at Pride and realize, oh, you don't have a problem with this either. It's more than just about a cultural event. It's more than just about arts funding. It's about how Canadians talk to each other, how we celebrate each other, how we understand each other. And if corporations are pulling away, government certainly can't. But I think we need to take a look at how we fund arts organizations, everything from Harbourfront Centre to the AGO to the smaller organizations, like Carabana, you name it, it needs to be supported. And now's an important time to do that.
Brad Bradford, it's a 10-day basically money machine for an awful lot of people in this town, but apparently some corporations are moving their money somewhere else.
Yeah, and you're seeing this across a lot of different files. I don't know if it's the tough economy or the threat of tariffs. There's a lot of companies, as Adam pointed out, that are revising marketing dollars and spending programs. I don't know if this is linked to the U.S. or not. I would certainly hope it's not. But I'm glad to see that Pride Toronto is trying to adapt and work within their means. For any corporation that is looking for marketing exposures and activations, this is the biggest activation in the city of Toronto. Millions of people over the course of 10 days. I love Pride. It's my favorite parade of the year. And as you guys said, it brings everyone together. So if you are a corporation that's looking to have a footprint, tons of exposure, everything from stages to parade activities to signage, to different ways that you can find, new opportunities to get your message out there, this might create new opportunities for new businesses to participate in a really positive way.
Yeah, Rowena, you could argue maybe you need a new model and maybe it needs to be smaller, or maybe people at Pride need to beat the bushes better for new money.
Yeah, I was just going to get to that, John. In addition to making sure that the governments continue funding important events like this, like Adam had shared, it's time to start looking at diversifying their revenue stream. This is one of the largest Pride events and festivals around the world. I saw in the article that they're planning to cancel a bunch of events for their festivities this year, but at the same time, people around the world are coming here. They should consider maybe ticketing some of these events and to help cover the costs, or even do some crowdsourced funding. There's a lot of appetite to make sure that this event stays successful and that we celebrate Pride in Toronto and across the country. So diversifying their revenue, I think, is something they need to really start looking at.
Donald Trump is defending Wayne Gretzky and saying, well, no, he doesn't really believe in the whole 51st state thing. Adam Vaughan, I think what surprises me is how quickly Canadians turned on Wayne Gretzky once he became Donald Trump's enabler.
Well, look, we're living in an era where it's sort of gotcha politics all the time. I mean, Wayne Gretzky has friends that are awkward. Big deal. A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. We don't pull citizenship from people or do it sort of crowdsourced or sort of Twitter campaigns. It's time we had adults leading this country and adults leading this conversation. And the sort of notion of gotcha politics is really, we've seen where it goes south of the border. It doesn't end in a good place. I think it's one of the reasons Poilievre's numbers are dropping like a stone. People want serious people to be doing serious things to fix serious problems. And this kind of sort of symbolic gesturing that Jagmeet Singh was doing at the start of this conversation, and now some are doing with Wayne Gretzky. Give it a rest. Let's get to work. Let's build a better country. Let's invest in the right programs to do the right sorts of things, and let's stop being childish about everything. Enough of the slogans. Let's have some solid policy, some smart people, and some adults lead the country for a change.
Thank you all. Good to have you. Adam Vaughan, Brad Bradford, Rowena Santos. Coming up in the next